Welcome to Politics Unusual. I'm Morgan McKay. The mayor's race has state lawmakers already looking ahead to next year, and some Democratic leaders are gearing up to partner with Zohran Mamdani if he's elected mayor. So our first guest this week is State Senator Liz Krueger, who knows the state budget better than pretty much anyone else up in Albany. We're discussing how future policy ideas could impact New York fiscally. Then we're speaking with Rabbi Ari Berman about how candidates are approaching certain topics relating to Israel and anti-Semitism. And then we're checking in with Garden State voters about some important issues that could impact the New Jersey governor's race. But first, there's an old saying up in Albany called 3 men in a room, which refers to how the governor, Senate Majority Leader, and Assembly Speaker gather in a room behind closed doors to hash out major budget items. Although it's not 3 men anymore, all 3 of these leaders have now endorsed Zohran Mamdani for mayor, and 2 of these leaders seem like they're on board for at least some of Mamdani's top initiatives if he's elected mayor. So joining us now is State Senator Liz Krueger. Thank you so much for being here. We're going to start out first with, you've also endorsed Mamdani. Explain why.
So I was not a supporter pre the primary. I actually was a supporter of Brad Lander. And we all know that that storyline did not go that way. But after the primary, I think the next day, Zohran Mamdani reached out to me to start to talk about issues that we had differences of opinion on and issues we could agree on. And I continued the conversation and the dialogue, and I did not rush to endorse. But frankly, it was very obvious that this man was going to win this election, and rightly so, out of hard work and gaining the support of the majority of people voting. And so I decided that since I'm pretty sure he is going to be the mayor, I want to be the best mayor possible for our city. And that means wanting to help him learn the job and be involved as much as I can be in making recommendations to him on how we get the important things done.
Now, as a Senate Finance Chair yourself, you know the budget in and out. What do you think about, Assembly Speaker Carl Hastie, Senate Majority Leader Andre Stewart-Cousins? They potentially are going to be backing, if Mamdani is elected, universal child care, free buses. What is your sense from the Democratic conference right now? Do you feel like they would be maybe on board for some of these proposals?
Well, I think, speaking for the Senate, Andre is an amazing leader who believes in developing consensus of our membership. So I don't think we've discussed this as a group yet. I think some of the issues you just named are goals and aspirations and hopes of many progressive electeds. And the question will come down onto, can we afford any of this? And that's where I'm like the bad news carrier, because with the proposals that the federal government has already put into place through that one big awful bill they passed in July, we know as the state of New York that we're expecting to lose billions of dollars come the next fiscal year and the years after that. So we know that New York State's projected to lose about $13 billion annually for health care, hundreds of millions of dollars a year in SNAP benefits for low-income New Yorkers, huge cuts in housing and homeless services. We've already seen a major reduction in anti-terrorism funding. We've already seen changes that will harm our school systems, harm our transportation systems. So now you come in with a mayor who has hopes and dreams for free transportation and free childcare. I'd say we will have to look at that in the context of all the losses in federal money we and the other 49 states are facing.
Now, one option to fund these programs, I know that's been tossed around, is raising taxes for millionaires or on millionaires and corporations. Assembly Speaker Carl Hastie this week said he was in support of it. What's your take? Do you feel like that's something that could be done in the state legislature? I know it's been tossed around for years now.
I think we are probably getting to the point in history where the state is going to need to increase taxes on both corporations and the wealthiest New Yorkers. Now, will that money then be available for the city of New York for new programs? I think they will have to get in line behind all the other programs that are facing cuts from the federal government. And I will remind everyone that the Washington agenda moving forward doesn't just cut huge amounts of the programs coming to the states, they also cut federal taxes for these populations, for corporations, and for the wealthiest Americans. So even if the state of New York, frankly, needs to increase taxes to make sure we come close to being whole, I would suspect that for the vast majority of Americans that who would be impacted, or New Yorkers who would be impacted, they'll still be ahead of the game with their federal tax cuts.
Governor Kathy Hochul has been insistent that she's not going to be raising taxes. She's facing re-election next year. It doesn't really seem like she is probably going to want at least to budge on this issue. Do you think this is going to set up a potential fight up in Albany? What do you kind of think?
Well, the definition of a government structure, right, divided between the governor, the assembly, and the Senate, is that we do have fights. It's not fights on a personal level. It's institutional debates about what is in the best interests of the people of New York State. And yes, the governor is running for re-election, as is all of the Assembly and Senate, as is all of the Congress next year. Mm-hmm. So I have no illusions that politics don't play some role in this. But I will say, if you ask the people of New York State, what are the things that they really care about? And you say, oh, you're losing health care, you're losing food nutrition programs, you're losing educational funding, you're losing funding for housing. I think most New Yorkers are actually going to say, could we do something about that as a priority versus anyone's individual elections?
Before I let you go, I did want to get your take as well on news that dropped this week. The state's Democratic Party chairman, Jay Jacobs, he says he's not going to be endorsing Mamdani. And in fact, he said that democratic socialism doesn't have a place in the Democratic Party and they have insurmountable differences. What is your take on the Democratic Party chairman not endorsing the Democratic nominee, especially after Governor Hochul has?
The chair of the Democratic Party for New York State should be endorsing Democratic candidates. This isn't the first time he's gone this route, personally, but I think not only is he wrong, it's bad for the Democratic Party. Let's be honest. The Democratic Party's reputation with too many voters is not a very good one. And I think it's not a very good one because we're not showing our strength, our unity, and focusing on what the people care about. And I think if you look at Mr. Mamdani's primary election and hearing people on the street talking to me about this, they see him as understanding what matters to them and committed to doing what matters to him or to them. And that is far more relevant than any individual chair of a party thinking that he doesn't like the Democratic Socialists. To be honest, people have to remember the vast majority of the U.S. government's foreign allies who have been the strongest allies with us since World War II have had Democratic Socialist governments. It's not terrifying. And if I hear one more person tell me it's communism, go read a book. Communism and democratic socialism are not the same thing. Democratic socialism has been a majority party role in the parliaments of Europe for over 50 years. We have other elected officials around the country who are democratic socialists, and it's not a conflict with being a Democrat.
Well, thank you so much, Senator. I cannot thank you enough for being on. It's great seeing you.
Thank you, Morgan. Take care.
Coming up next, we're digging deeper in the race for the New York City mayor. We're going to be joined by Rabbi Ari Berman, who's going to discuss how some Jewish faith leaders are reacting to the mayor's race. Welcome Welcome back to Politics Unusual. Zohran Mamdani recently doubled down on his stance that, if elected, he would order the NYPD to arrest the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu. This, as a recent Siena College poll shows that a majority of New Yorkers polled support Mamdani's stance on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Joining us now to talk about all of this and more is Rabbi Ari Berman, president of Yeshiva University. Thank you so much for being here. So before we get to those comments, I want to start first with how the Jewish vote is impacting this election this year.
Well, thank you so much, Morgan, for having me. It's wonderful to be here. I mean, the Jewish vote is very important in New York City. This is 10% of the electorate. But I think what's at stake when it comes to this election is more than the Jewish vote. And I think the matters that Jews are concerned about in this case are matters that all New Yorkers would be concerned about.
So let's start with Mamdani's comments here. He said that he wants to arrest Benjamin Netanyahu. I interviewed Congressman Jerry Nadler earlier this week, who is the longest-serving Jewish member in Congress, about this issue. He's endorsed Mamdani, but here's what he had to say about Mamdani's comments.
Well, I think Netanyahu ought to be arrested. He is, I've said publicly many times, he's the worst Jewish leader in 2,000 years. And he is clearly committing war crimes in Gaza and on the West Bank, for that matter, and mass murder, for that matter. I don't think that the mayor of New York has the authority to arrest anyone who comes to this country under the protection of the State Department.
What do you think about the congressman's comments? Do you agree with him, or what do you think?
Well, this is really important. I'll say, you know, I'm a faith leader, a university president. I'm here as an educator because there's an issue that needs some light to be shed upon it. And that is the anti-Zionism that has entered into this campaign. You know, when a candidate says that the Jewish people do not have the right to their own state, that's a double standard. There's 28 Muslim countries, there are 13 Christian countries, that the Jews are the only people that do not have a right to their own state. That's discrimination, that's anti-Semitism. And that's what we're seeing being spoken about over here.
Andrew Cuomo, during the primary, said that anti-Zionism equals anti-Semitism. Is that something you agree with?
Yeah, and it has to be teased out. This is so important. Anti-Semitism isn't just about hate. If the candidate says that he doesn't hate the Jews, you know, I believe him. I take Mamdani at his word. But discrimination is also anti-Semitism. And what we need to hone in on is that if one has a double standard when it comes to the Jewish people as opposed to everybody else, you know, that's discrimination, that's anti-Semitism. When it comes to Netanyahu, that's a great example. America is not party to the ICC treaty. The one aspect that that's going to happen in America where the ICC is going to be enforced is the mayor of New York arresting the Prime Minister of Israel. It's another example of discrimination, which is anti-Semitism, and he needs to be asked about it and held accountable for it. Israel is a Jewish state with equal rights to all of its citizens. There's Muslims in the Knesset, generals in the army, Supreme Court. It's a blessing to everyone as a Jewish state. And Mamdani needs to be asked his position about that.
Do you feel, though, this is such a great topic to talk about because it is so prevalent right now in the mayor's race, but do you feel like there is a sentiment right now among voters that there should be a separation between Israel and the Jewish faith? I think some people say that they can be critical of Israel while still being supportive of Jewish believers and those with ethnic backgrounds. Do you agree with that?
This is so important, Morgan. I absolutely agree with that. You can be critical of the state of Israel, critical of the policies of the government. What you can't be is deny Israel's right to exist as a Jewish state that's equal citizens for everyone. You cannot deny that. And that is what Mamdani has not endorsed. And he needs to be held accountable, not just him, but every politician that has endorsed Mamdani needs to be asked, do they endorse other candidates where discrimination is on the platform? And if they don't, why is it just when the Jews are being discriminated against, is it okay? From the governorship to the House of Representatives, to the Assembly, to the Council. Everyone who's endorsed Mamdani needs to be asked that question.
Mamdani this week also said that he wants to change the definition of anti-Semitism, putting it in line with the Biden administration's national strategy to counter anti-Semitism, saying that it combines criticism of Israel with anti-Semitism. What are your thoughts?
I think there's a misunderstanding of what this definition of anti-Semitism is. What it does is it says that there cannot be a double standard that the Jews alone are placed on. And this is a great example. You can always criticize the government of Israel. The Jews are very diverse people. A lot of people criticizing the government of the state of Israel. What's universal, or near universal, to the Jewish people is that everyone believes that Israel has a right to exist as a Jewish state. It's a blessing to its Jewish citizens, to all of its citizens, and to the world. And that it has a basic right to exist should be affirmed by every candidate, not just in the mayoral race, but across the country. And this is very important, Morgan. If anti-Semitism and discrimination is allowed to enter into this conversation, it's not just the Jews that have to be worried. It first starts with the Jews, but it never stops with them. That's the lesson of history. We have to stop discrimination where it starts.
In many of the polls, it shows right now that majority of Jewish voters seem to be actually supporting Mamdani. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think he has policies that are very attractive. And I'm not here to speak about politics. I'm not here to tell somebody who to vote or not vote. As an educator, we need to clarify that anti-Zionism is discrimination, is anti-Semitism, and not just Mamdani, but every politician who endorses Mamdani needs to be asked, how do they endorse a position that inside of it is discrimination? And that's very important. And it's important for Jewish New Yorkers to understand that better. Meaning, Mamdani said he doesn't hate Jews. We could take him at his word. But he is discriminating against the Jewish people. And the Jewish New Yorkers and all New Yorkers that would be bothered by that need to understand it, and he needs to be asked about that. And all the other politicians need to be asked about that as well.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Morgan. Thank you for what you're doing.
Coming up next, we're taking the pulse of the people and a very big issue on the minds of New Jersey voters, why soaring electric rates could play a role in the race for governor. With the general election quickly approaching, a brand new poll was released this week in the race for the New Jersey governor. It shows Democratic Mikey Sherrill leading Republican Jack Ciattarelli by 8%. The race has tightened since the start of summer when Sherrill held a 20% lead. One of the biggest issues on the minds of voters are the state's rising electricity rates. Customers already hit with a 20% increase this year will see another rate hike next summer. Mikey Sherrill says she'll freeze energy rates for a year if she's elected governor, while Jack Ciattarelli says he'll focus on natural gas and nuclear energy. We asked Garden State residents how this issue will affect them at the ballot box.
It's going to affect who I'm voting for governor. The cost of electricity has skyrocketed.
I believe that the cost of electricity will affect who wins the governmentship, because, you know, electricity is becoming a bill that everyone used to ignore, but now it seems to be getting higher and higher.
Yes, because my electricity is pretty reasonable now, and for it to double would not be good.
And we'll continue to check in with people across our area. Next up, we're going to test your knowledge of the tri-state region, so stay with us as we take a look at some political history. We're flashing back to this week in history. On September 19th, 1960, Fidel Castro met with Malcolm X at the Hotel Teresa in Harlem. Castro was in town for the UN General Assembly, but following a dispute with a Manhattan hotel, Malcolm X invited Castro to Harlem. The meeting became a powerful symbol of solidarity between the two. Finally, tonight, we're testing your knowledge. Last week, we asked you, what was the first bridge constructed in New York City? The answer, the King's Bridge. It was completed in 1693, spanning Spuyten-Duyvil Creek between Manhattan and the Bronx. It was eventually demolished in 1917. Now, to this week's question. What was the first pizzeria to open in the United States? Here's a hint. It's definitely local and still going strong. Now, don't Google the answer, but if you want to take a shot at it, go ahead and scan the code on your screen. That's going to take you to our website, fox5ny.com, where you can type in your answer and check back here next week to see if you're right. That does it for this episode of Politics Unusual. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Morgan McKay. Remember, you can stream Battleground NYC, the fight for your vote, live on the Fox Local app right now or anytime on demand. Have a safe night. Extras up next.